Hey folks, happy Tuesday to you. It is Tuesday, February 16th, and we continue our FUMCCV devotional in this month of February, the month of love. God God shows love for me when God gives me joy. God shows love for me when God gives me joy. And the scripture this day is Philippians chapter 4, verse 4. So I invite you to turn over into the book of Philippians. That is in your New Testament. Philippi was one of the churches in which Paul was engaged in ministry. They wrote Paul a letter, and Paul responded back to that letter, and that's the words that we're reading. As you're finding that, let me just say a little bit more about that. When Paul was writing all of these letters, Paul had no idea that he was writing the pieces that would become the New Testament, the biblical canon. And it was in later years that a sort of disciple, a follower of Paul, Marcion, his name is Marcion, went around collecting, we believe, all the letters of Paul. So he went to the city of Philippi and he said, "Did you guys ever receive a letter from Paul?" And they said, "Yes, they have it." So he took that letter, or he copied it. So he has a copy of it, and he went around trying to collect all the letters that Paul had wrote. And some of the letters were intact. Some of the letters were like, well, we got half of this one, and we lost the second page, and we have this. And so he really worked to put all of those together. So we don't have the letters that the churches wrote to him, because those were sort of unremarkable, signed by someone we didn't even know. Whereas Marcion was going around and he was collecting the letters that were signed by Paul. And so a very famous name. And so we were able to gather those. Just a fascinating process. And we get, in the scriptures, we get a little view into these personal relationships that Paul had with these different churches. So Philippians chapter 4, verse 4, God shows love for me when God gives me joy. And here's the verse: rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. This is Paul's words to the Philippians at the end, sort of in his closing remarks. He is saying this to them. Now, we are reminded that in Philippi and in cities like this, in the Greco-Roman world, there was great persecution of Christians that were happening in the Roman Empire. And so the people were afraid. They were watching their loved ones die because of their faith. They were threatened because of their faith. And so it was a difficult time. And so Paul is trying to encourage the Philippians here and trying to help them understand that somehow in our relationship with God, no matter how good or bad it is, we can have what we call joy. So not happiness. Happiness, I think, is more circumstantial. It was a good meal. Am I happy with what I ordered? Yeah, and it's completely circumstantial, as opposed to joyful. Joyful, I have the provisions in my life that I need for myself and my children. That brings me joy. A particular kind of food that pleases me brings me happiness. You understand the difference between those two. Our world often confuses happiness for joy and vice versa. We shall not always be happy. Our circumstances will not always make us happy, the sort of surface feeling. Our hope is that in relationship, in the depth of our relationship with God, we will always be able to experience joy because we know that God is with us, God is for us, and God is providing for us. And it's from that deep well of connection with God that joy arises. I hope that joy arises in your life on this day. God bless.